ISRO successfully launches India's largest LVM3 OneWeb India 2 mission rocket carrying 36 satellites from Sriharikota today. The LVM3 M3 carried 36 Gen 1 satellites with a total weight of 5,805 kgs into the orbit. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he would deploy tactical nuclear weapons in neighboring Belarus. Says United States has been placing such arms on their allies' territory for decades. US reacts cautiously of Putin's announcement. At least 25 killed in Mississippi tornado storms. Tornadoes sweep through central United States, knocking out power. US President Joe Biden calls deadly Mississippi storms heartbreaking, vows federal support. Former US President Donald Trump kicks off presidential campaign with rally in Texas. Trump slams the hush money investigation, calls it illegal, also describes 2024 election as the final battle. Prime Minister Narendra Modi shares his thoughts in the 99th episode of Mann Ki Baat, urges people to come forward as organ donors, says government working on a uniform policy to encourage more people and make organ donation easy. Prime Minister in his Mann Ki Baat program lauds exceptional role played by Nari Shakti across sectors, says the energy of women power is the oxygen of a developed India. Prime Minister also highlights India's phenomenal success in clean energy sector. In sports, in World Boxing Championship, Nikhat and Lovlina Borgohen to play for gold today. Yesterday, India's Neetu Gangas and Sweti Bora also clinched gold medals in the event. And Delhi Capitals to face Mumbai Indians in the summit clash of the inaugural Women's Premier League in Mumbai today. Match to begin at Brabourne Stadium in Mumbai at 7:30 p.m. tonight. Hello, you're watching DD India and I'm Preeti presenting this edition of the news. Our top story first. In a major boost to Indian space industry, ISRO today successfully launched India's LVM3 M3 satellite with 36 satellites of the OneWeb India 2 mission, and it took off from the second launch pad of Satish Dhawan Space Center, Sriharikota, successfully at 9 this morning. The 26-meter launch vehicle successfully completed the 3 stages in the prescribed time limit, including the involvement of the ignition of the cryogenic ignition. Now, the data are being tracked by ground stations at Thiruvananthapuram, Lucknow and Bangalore stations, and also the station at Antarctica. The rocket carried 36 satellites of the UK-based network Access Associated Limited OneWeb. The Indian rocket LVM3, standing 43.5 meters tall and weighing 643 tons, blasted off from the launch pad at the rocket port. The LVM3 is a 3-stage rocket with the final stage fired with liquid fuel. The 2 strap-on motor is powered by solid fuel, the second by liquid fuel and the cryogenic engine. ISRO's heavy lift rocket has a carrying capacity of 10 tons to the LEO and 4 tons to the GEO transfer orbit. Speaking after the launch, ISRO's chairman S. Somnath said that the first 16 satellites of the OneWeb India 2 series were placed at the right orbit as planned. He congratulated ISRO staff for achieving the success.
Congratulations to NSIL and ISRO and OneWeb for the successful launch of LVM3 M3 OneWeb India 2 mission. As we know today, the first 16 satellites of the series are already placed in the right orbit, and now it has gone in the far south of the Earth, and we will be getting confirmation of the remaining spacecraft separation soon once the onboard storage data is acquired by our Indian ground stations. Till now, based on the observations, the vehicle has done extremely well. It went up to the right orbit. and placed spacecraft at the right orbit and also with very minimal disturbances to it. So I am very happy today for the consecutive launch success of GSLV-3, that is LVM3. So specifically I want to thank the entire ISRO family for making this historic event happen today.
ISRO chairman also briefed about the organization's upcoming launches.
We are getting ready for the next launch campaign soon with the launch of the GSLV-3. But before that, we are also getting ready for the launch of the PSLV, which is currently going on. In April, we will have the launch of again a commercial launch of PSLV. And we are also commencing the campaign for the GSLV Mark II as well. At this time, let me take this opportunity to thank our Honorable Prime Minister as well as the government for supporting us in making this launch vehicle available for commercial launches.
In a major development, Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced that Russia will station tactical nuclear weapons in neighboring Belarus, marking the first time since the mid-1990s that Moscow will have based such arms outside the country. Putin made the announcement at the time of growing tensions with the West over the Ukraine war, and as some Russian commentators speculate about possible nuclear strikes. Putin told state television on Saturday that Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko had long raised the issue of stationing tactical nuclear weapons in his country, which borders NATO member Poland. Putin did not specify when the weapons would be transferred to Belarus. Now, tactical nuclear weapons refer to those used for specific gains in the battlefield. Putin said Russia will have completed the construction of a storage facility for tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus by July 1st, adding that Moscow would not actually be transferring control of the arms to Minsk. The U.S. State Department said the Pentagon did not immediately return messages seeking comment. Russia has stationed 10 aircraft in Belarus capable of carrying tactical nuclear weapons, he said, adding that Moscow had already transferred to Belarus a number of Iskander tactical missile systems that can be used to launch nuclear weapons. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, nuclear weapons were deployed in the 4 newly independent states of Russia, Ukraine, Belarus and Kazakhstan. In May 1992, the 4 states agreed all the weapons should be based in Russia, and the transfer of warheads from Ukraine, Belarus and Kazakhstan was completed in 1996.
As for our negotiations with Alexander Grigorovich Lukashenko with Belarus, the pretext was the statement of the British Defence Secretary that they were going to deliver depleted uranium charges to Ukraine. It is still connected with the nuclear technologies. It is obvious, however, even out of context of those events and this statement, Alexander Grigorievich Lukashenko has been bringing up the question of deploying Russian tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus for a long time.
The president of Russia also said that the move would not violate nuclear non-proliferation agreements and compared it to the US stationing its weapons in Europe.
Alexander Grigorievich is right. He says, listen, we are your closest allies. Why do the Americans deploy the nuclear weapons at their allies? On their territory, train the cruise pilots how to use this type of weapons if needed. We agreed that we will do the same without violating our obligations. I emphasize, without violating our international obligations on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons.
Meanwhile, the United States, the world's other nuclear superpower, reacted cautiously. A senior administration official noted that Russia and Belarus had talked about such a deal over the past year and said there were no signs that Moscow planned to use its nuclear weapons. In the US, rescuers raced to search for survivors and help hundreds of people left homeless after a powerful tornado cut a devastating path through Mississippi, killing at least 25 people, injuring dozens and flattening entire blocks as it carved a path of destruction for more than an hour. One person was killed in Alabama. The tornado devastated a swath of the Mississippi Delta town of Rolling Fork, reducing homes to piles of rubble, flipping cars on their sides and toppling the town's water tower. Residents hunkered down in bathtubs and hallways during Friday night's storm and later broke into a John Deere store that they converted into a triage center for the wounded. At least 24 reports of tornadoes were issued to the National Weather Service on Friday night and into Saturday morning by storm chasers and observers. The reports stretched from the western edge of Mississippi north through the center of the state and into Alabama. In Alabama, which was also struck by the same storm system, rescuers pulled a man from the mud when his trailer was overturned, but the man died from his injuries, according to Morgan County Sheriff's Office. That appeared to be the only reported death in that state as of afternoon on Saturday, even as survey teams work to assess how many tornadoes struck and their severity. The Storm Prediction Center warned of the potential for the hail, wind and possibly a few tornadoes on Sunday in parts of Mississippi and Louisiana. In Rolling Fork, a town of 1,700 in western Mississippi that was hardest hit by a powerful storm, showed homes reduced to rubble, tree trunks snapped like twigs, and cars and trucks tossed aside. Mississippi residents combed through rubble after a powerful storm tore across Mississippi overnight. According to Nicholas Price, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Jackson, the tornado stayed on the ground for about an hour and cut a path of destruction some 170 miles long. Meanwhile, Sherrod Brown, volunteer leader of Team Rubicon, landed in Rolling Fork in Mississippi on Saturday with a mission to help in tornado recovery effort. Brown said that really there is not much of a difference, as he had signed up for the army to serve and protect the country. Whereas at least 24 reports of tornadoes were issued to the National Weather Service by storm chasers and observers. The reports stretched from the western edge of Mississippi north through the center of the state and into Alabama.
There's not much of a difference. For me, I signed up the Army to serve this country and protect this country. Now we're responding to disasters with Team Rubicon, serving this country and protecting this country. Can't quite protect it, but I can sure help them.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden expressed his condolences to the victims of the tornado in Mississippi that left at least 25 people dead and another in Alabama, leveling dozens of buildings. Biden described the images from Mississippi as heartbreaking and said in a statement that he had spoken with local authorities and offered his condolences and full federal support for the recovery. Former U.S. President Donald Trump used his first election rally in Waco in Texas to rail against the prosecutors investigating him, employing dark and conspiratorial language to fire up his base ahead of next year's Republican primary elections. Trump told supporters gathered at Waco's airport on Saturday that the investigation swirling around him was something straight out of the Stalinist Russia horror show. Trump's rally is happening in Waco as the city marks the 30th anniversary of a raid by federal agents on the Branch Davidians religious sect there that resulted in 86 deaths, including 4 law enforcement officers.
Weaponization of law enforcement against their political opponent is something straight out of the Stalinist Russian horror show. Prosecutorial misconduct is their new tool, and they are willing to use it at levels never seen before in our country. We've had it, but we've never had it like this. We must stop them, and we must not allow them to go through another election where they have yet another tool in their toolkit. And 2024 is the final battle. That's going to be the big one. If you put me back in the White House, their reign will be over, and America will be a free nation once again.
Donald Trump also slammed the Biden administration's weaponization of the justice system. He repeatedly described the probes as politically motivated efforts to hamper his 2024 presidential bid.
Under Joe Biden, American patriots are being arrested and held in captivity like animals. Look at what's happening in Washington. And I will tell you, Marjorie Taylor Greene is the expert. She's been to that prison many times. There is nobody that has described what's happening in that prison. It's a hellhole. And these are soldiers and policemen and firemen and medics and doctors in a couple of cases. These are people that shouldn't have been there.
In Israel, protests against judicial reforms rocked Tel Aviv even on Saturday. Tens of thousands of Israelis took to the streets as part of the nationwide demonstrations. Drone footage showed protesters waving Israeli flags and carrying banners. The demonstrations, now in their 11th week, are against plans by a hard-right government to curb the Supreme Court's powers, which critics see as a threat to judicial independence. In the midst of the public outrage in face of large-scale protests in Israel, the country's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, called on the government to halt judicial reform process. He said that the bitter dispute over the measures poses a danger to the country. Gallant said that he supported reforms of the justice system, but they must be done with broad agreement.
In recent days and weeks, during conversations and discussions behind the scene, I presented the security situation. I asked, reasoned and said that at this time the process must be stopped so that we may sit and talk. But now I declare loudly and publicly, for the sake of Israel's security, for the sake of our sons and daughters, the legislative process should be stopped in order to enable the nation of Israel to celebrate Passover and Independence Day together, and to mourn together on Memorial Day and Holocaust Remembrance Day. These are holy days for us.
As the Russia-Ukraine war rages on, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, will pay a second visit to Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant next week to assess the serious security situation. Rafael Grossi said in a statement published on the IAEA's website that the nuclear safety and security dangers at the Russian-held plant were all too obvious. Grossi will be accompanied by a new group of IAEA experts, the seventh team present at the site since the IAEA support and assistance mission to Zaporizhzhia was established. China and Honduras established diplomatic relations today. Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Qin Gang held talks with Foreign Minister of Honduras Eduardo Reina in Beijing on Sunday. The two sides signed the joint communique on the establishment of diplomatic relations between the People's Republic of China and the Republic of Honduras. China and Honduras, in keeping with the interests and desires of the two peoples, have decided to recognize each other and establish diplomatic relations at the ambassadorial level, effective from the date of signature of the communique. Now, according to the joint communique, the two governments agreed to develop friendly relations between the two countries on the basis of the principles of mutual respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, mutual non-aggression, non-interference in each other's internal affairs, equality, mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence. Meanwhile, Taiwan's Foreign Minister Joseph Wu told reporters that Taipei was breaking off formal ties with decades-long ally Honduras. The announcement came shortly after the Honduran side announced the severing of ties. Some updates from Latin America now. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has cancelled his trip to China after contracting pneumonia, according to the president's press secretary. The press secretary said that President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva was admitted to the Syrio-Libanese hospital with flu-like symptoms. After clinical evaluation, a diagnosis of bacterial and viral bronchopneumonia due to influenza A was made and treatment was initiated. Earlier, Lula was scheduled to start his trip on March 26th, but later on cancelled till Sunday due to the same medical reason. On March 27th, a delegation of hundreds of business persons alongside governors, congressmen and ministers was scheduled to accompany him. As per the presidential office, the visit was part of the new Brazilian government's efforts towards reconstructing its international relations and to relaunch Brazil's relations with China. Spanish firefighters battled the first major wildfire of the year, which has scorched more than 4,000 hectares of forest and forced 1,500 villagers to leave their homes in the Valencia region. Emergency services said that more than 500 firefighters, supported by 20 planes and helicopters, were working to bring the blaze under control near the village of Villanueva de Viva and they had successfully stopped the fire spreading to other areas. Members of the Spanish Emergency Military Unit said that they were focused on consolidating fire outbreaks to secure the perimeter in Los Calpes as part of the extinguishing strategy, whereas President of the Valencia region told reporters that the blaze was made more voracious by summer-like temperatures of about 30 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, evacuated people were awaiting their fate as the blaze kept raging. Holidaymakers and local residents are staying in makeshift shelters at the Navayas camping, and the Red Cross is using a sports pavilion to provide food to evacuees. According to the Commission's European Forest Fire Information System, 493 fires destroyed a record 307,000 hectares of land in Spain. And back home, Prime Minister Narendra Modi today addressed the 99th edition of his Mann Ki Baat monthly radio program. Prime Minister lauded the role of women in India's progress, mentioning the increasing participation of women from the field of politics to sports. Prime Minister Modi praised the rescue operation by women bravehearts in the wake of earthquake in Turkey. He said that India's daughters have created a new history by winning the Under-19 T20 World Cup.
कुछ दिनों पहले मेरी मुलाकात उन जाबाज बेटियों से भी हुई जो तुर्की में विनाशकारी भूकंप के बाद वहां के लोगों की मदद के लिए गई थी। ये सभी एनडीआरएफ के दस्ते में शामिल थी। उनके साहस और कुशलता की पूरी दुनिया में तारीफ हो रही है। भारत ने यूएन मिशन के तहत शांति सेना में वुमेन ओनली प्लेटून की भी तैनाती की है।
Prime Minister, in his monthly radio program of Mann Ki Baat, expressed satisfaction that awareness about organ donation is rising in the country. He in fact said that there are a large number of needy people who are awaiting organ donors, and he also shared a heartrending story of the youngest organ donor of the country, Ababat Kaur. He also interacted with parents of Ababat Kaur during the Mann Ki Baat program.
सुखबीर जी, आज आपकी बेटी का सिर्फ एक अंग जीवित है ऐसा नहीं है। आपकी बेटी मानवता की अमर गाथा की अमर यात्री बन गई है। अपने शरीर के अंश के जरिए वो आज भी उपस्थित है। इस नेक कार्य के लिए मैं आपकी श्रीमती जी की, आपके परिवार की सराहना करता हूं।
Up next, we get you updates from sports. A day after India's Neetu Gangas and Sweeti Bora clinched gold medals in the Women's World Boxing Championships on Saturday, Nikhat and Lovlina will be eyeing to win two more gold medals for India today at the Indira Gandhi Sports Complex in Delhi. Nikhat will take on two-time Asian champion Nguyen Thi Tam of Vietnam in the 50 kg final. If Nikhat wins, it will be her second consecutive gold in the World Championships. In another bout, Lovlina, the Tokyo Olympics medalist, will square off against Australia's Kathleen Parker, who has won 2 gold medals in Commonwealth Games. Earlier, Lovlina in the 75 kg category defeated China's Li Qian in the semi-final. From boxing to cricket, in the Women's Premier League, Delhi Capitals will face Mumbai Indians in the summit clash of the tournament in Mumbai today. The final match of the tournament will be played at Brabant Stadium in Mumbai at 7:30 p.m. today evening. Both the teams have recorded heavy wins against each other in the group stage and finished with identical 12 points, with only the net run rate separating them at the top of the table. Delhi Capitals stand at the top with 1.856, while Mumbai Indians are holding the second spot with 1.711. Going by their record at the Brabant Stadium, Mumbai Indians have the upper hand, having won all the 3 games so far, while Delhi Capitals have 2 wins and a loss at the venue. That's it in this edition of the news. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.